Hi, this is Karen White of Divine Time Astrology, and this is the continuation of the writing topic I started on my Monday Moon Messages blogs. And this week I'm going to show you the chart of an author, very well known. Her name is Sue Grafton, and she has written a series of books starting with the letters, using the letters of the alphabet, from A all the way to Y. She didn't make it to Z. She passed away at 77. But Sue Grafton has, in her birth chart here, we can see what planets and houses are making her an author. So the first condition that we need to meet for the Jaimini technique of seeing authorship, there are other ways to see being an author, like there can be writing yogas, for instance. But today we're looking at the moon and this particular Jaimini technique for determining whether or not you're an author. Okay, so the first condition is the moon, which rules writing in particular, and music and a variety of other things. But the moon needs to be ruled by, with, or aspected by either Venus, Jupiter, or Mercury. And we see here that the moon is in Sagittarius. Well, Sagittarius is ruled by Jupiter. Jupiter in this chart is Sue's Altmakaraka, or self-producer planet. So we see there's a direct connection there too. But anyway, she meets the first condition. The moon is in the sign of Jupiter. But it's also aspected by Venus, one of the other planets that you need to influence the moon in order to be a writer. So she's got two conditions met there. And now, because of the kind of books that she writes, the Kinsey Millhone series is, well, it's detective. She's a detective, private investigator. She's an ex-cop, and she's solving crimes and murders. Well, that falls under the rulership of Mars. Mars rules the police, private investigators, and in Sue's chart, it also rules the 8th house of death. So when I looked up her chart, I wasn't surprised to see that Mars was involved in her writing combinations. Okay, so now the second condition that needs to be met is that the 3rd house needs to be involved in some way. The 3rd house is the hard work of writing. And it's good if you have a cruel planet aspecting the 3rd, or in the 3rd, or ruled by the 3rd house. And she has Mars here. And that's just because writing is actually quite hard work. And you do need the, I guess, the strength to do it. So we see here's the 3rd house, and the moon is aspecting the 3rd house. The next condition is the 5th house needs to be involved. The 5th is the house of creativity. And it's in Leo, which is ruled by the sun. The sun is ruled by Venus. And there it is, Venus aspecting the moon. Now, in this technique, you can only take a planet through 2 rulership signs in order to make the connection. And we see here that we only had to go through 1. So Leo ruled by the sun, ruled by Venus, and that's it. Now, the next condition that needs to be met is the 9th house needs to be involved, because the 9th house is the house of teaching and telling tales. And Sue has her moon in the 9th house. So we have that, but there are some other things about this chart that are really interesting. So for instance, the 3rd house of writing, the planet that rules that is Mercury. Mercury is with the self-producer planet, Jupiter, in the 1st house. So this is another way that we can see that writing is likely if we have these other conditions met, and we do. Now also in Jaimini, there is what is called the pada, the foot of the first house, and the upapada, which is the foot of the 10th. These are also career placements in the chart. Now, for Aries, for Su pada, it's in Leo. And the way that we come to this is we take the ascendant lord, which is Mars. We count from the ascendant 1, 2, 3 to Mars, the ascendant lord, and then count 3 more places, 1, 2, 3. And we end up here in Leo, which is the pada, or the foot of the ascendant. Leo is aspected by Mercury, K2, and Jupiter, also Rahu too. But in the Jaimini technique, the fixed signs and the cardinal or movable signs aspect only each other. So they go back and forth like this. But they can't aspect each other when they're right next to each other. So Taurus cannot aspect Aries, and Aries cannot aspect Taurus. But Aries can aspect Leo, Scorpio, and Aquarius. Okay, so we have the 3rd house lord and the Atmakaraka aspecting the 5th house of creativity. So we see that she's got a creative imagination. And now the Upapada, which is the foot of the 10th, now we come to this a little bit differently. We have to look for this cusp here. And we have to see where the 10th cusp is. It's not always in the 10th sign from the ascendant. In this case it is. So the 10th cusp is in Capricorn. So we need to count to Saturn, the ruler of Capricorn. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then 5 from there. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And it ends up here in Virgo. Well, Virgo is one of the dual signs. So Mars, Venus, and the moon all aspect Virgo. And this is another career house for her, career sign. And so this too would make her a writer. Now what's interesting about this is how writers tend to write about themselves in some way. And she's said in several interviews and articles that Kinsey Millhone, the main character in her series, is a young woman. She's single. She's a private investigator. She's an ex-cop. And she also has relationships that don't tend to work out. Now, Sue here has Mars and Venus together. And in Vedic astrology, this is known as frustration in married life. Well, Sue has been married 3 times. And it was her second marriage when she was getting divorced from her second husband. And there was a bitter custody battle going on, where she was laying in bed at night and fantasizing about all the different ways that she could kill her ex-husband. And she was just so upset with him. But by the morning of one night, she realized that she could write a book where she gets to kill her ex-husband. And in the book, the first book, she actually writes out her fantasy of killing her ex-husband with the oleander plant, which is everywhere in California. Anyway, I thought that was pretty ingenious way to deal with your frustration and your anger going through a divorce. The other interesting parallel between Sue and Kinsey is that Kinsey was orphaned young. Her parents were killed in an accident, and her grandmother had to raise her. Well, for Sue, both of her parents became alcoholics, and when she was pretty young, she said that her childhood basically ended at the age of 5 because she had to take care of her siblings and her parents. Now, what's interesting about that also is that in the Navamsha, the sign that the Utmakaraka self-producer planet is in tells you a lot about that person and their path. Well, Jupiter, Sue's Utmakaraka, is in the sign of Scorpio. And this means deprivation of mother's milk, which is a way of saying that in some way she just didn't get what she needed emotionally from her mother when she was growing up. And the alcoholism would definitely be one of the ways that she didn't get what she needed. And Kinsey, her main character, also didn't, because the grandmother who raised her did so rather grudgingly. She wasn't very happy about having to raise a child when she was already getting older. So Kinsey grew up too without much emotional sustenance. And then her relationships also have difficulty in them. Now what's interesting as well is that Sue's 7th house, which is the house of the partner, is in Libra. It's ruled by Libra, which is ruled by Venus. Venus is with his Mars. So as we can see here, this tells you a little bit about the kinds of people she is attracted to. But she has Rahu here. And wherever Rahu is in the chart, this is an area that's rather new for the native, or a house that's being developed this lifetime. Well, so the 7th house of relationships is being developed this lifetime for Sue. And in the sign of Libra, which is, I thought that was rather interesting as well. So this is, yeah, that's it for Sue. This is just a demonstration of a writer's chart. She's well known. She's made a living as a writer, where you can see how the Jaimini conditions for being a writer shows up. And next week I'll show you another one of my favorite authors. I'll do a series of them, not just fiction writers, but also non-fiction writers. And you can just see it in a variety of ways in the chart. This is Karen White of Divine Time Astrology. Goodbye until next time.